Today we are going to talk about strategies to use for reading responses. So let's take a look over on the left-hand side of the screen at the different steps that we want to follow when we have a reading passage presented to us. So number one says we want to read the questions first, and it's important to take a look at the keywords and note them when we look in the passage. Number two, read the passage. Number three, find the answers. Number four, answer the question. And number five, check your work. And it's very important you always check your work. So we're going to go ahead and jump right into number one. The first page that you see here, this is actually the passage. So we're going to go ahead and move to the other pages so we can look at the questions first. And here we have question number one. How did Abby keep her speed up? And I want you to take a look over here. This says strategy. Use keywords from the question to help you find where to look in the passage to find the answer. The key word for this question is speed. So that's the word that we're going to want to look out for as we're reading the passage, the word speed, which is right here. Okay, and we want to read the parts of the passage that contain that word, because as soon as we find them, we're going to want to pause and say, oh, I remember reading that in one of the questions, and then we can go back and answer that question. So that's number one. Number two, how did Abby's parents know that something was wrong? So again, we want to note keywords in the question. So let's take a look at the hint here. It says use the keywords something and wrong. So when we come across the word something and wrong, when we go ahead and read the passage, we're going to want to pause and say, hey, I remember reading something about something being wrong, and I'm going to want to go back and see if I can answer that question. Okay. Now, numbers 1 and 2 were what we call multiple choice, which you're probably very familiar with. But you are also going to be presented with questions like number 3. And this is like an open-ended question. So you're going to actually have to write out your answer. It says, what happened to Abby's ankle at the hospital? Okay, so if you look at the hint over here, it wants us to make note of the word hospital and the word ankle. So as we're reading, when we find something that talks about Abby's ankle at the hospital, we're going to want to pause and go back to the questions. Okay, number 4, what sports besides soccer was Abby's favorite? So I don't have any hints here on this page, as you can see. So I'm going to go ahead and tell you what I believe to be the keywords in question 4. So if I were doing this on my own, I would say that the keywords would be sport and favorite. Okay, you might also even throw in the word besides, because I don't want to know the sports soccer, because I already know that that's her favorite. So I want to know what sport besides soccer was her favorite. Number 5, how did Abby get hurt? So I would say that the key word here would be hurt. So when I come across something in the passage that talks about Abby getting hurt, I'm going to want to pause and come back to the question. Number 6, what is one reason that Abby was grumpy when her friends came to visit? So I'm going to look out for the words grumpy and friends coming to visit. So 4, 5, and 6, again, those are multiple choice questions. Number 7 is another example of an answer that you're going to have to type out. So it says, what did Abby's coach ask her to do so that she would still be part of the team? Was this a good idea? Explain why. This is a good example of making sure you read the questions very carefully, because you want to make sure that when you go ahead and answer number 7, that you are in fact answering all parts of the question. So this question actually has three different things that you have to talk about. You have to talk about what did Abby's coach ask her to do so that she would still be part of the team. You need to answer, was this a good idea? And you also need to explain why. So it's very important that you do all of those. So I would look out for part of the team when I would be going back to question number 7. Okay, so that's it for the questions. And if you remember, number 2 said that we actually have to read the passage. Okay, so here it is. Number 2, read the passage. So here we go. A good teammate. Abby loved playing sports. She was very good at them. Her favorite sports were softball and soccer. If you remember, boys and girls, her favorite sports, I remember having to look out for the word favorite. So I'm going to go back to my questions, and if you look, it's right here. Number 4, what sports besides soccer was Abby's favorite? It's very important that you read all of the answer choices that are presented to you. So I have playing games. No, I don't remember anything about them saying playing games. Basketball? I just read that passage. Nope, I didn't hear anything about basketball. Running? I do not remember hearing them say anything about running. Softball. So you can always, it's always a good idea to flip back to the passage and the question. So let's go back. Her favorite sports were softball and soccer. So if we go back to that question, your answer is D right there. So as you can see, it's very important, and it's a great tip that we went ahead and we made note of those key words so that when we went and read the passage, we were able to quickly realize like, oh, wait a minute, I remember reading the word favorite. Let me go back and check to see if it is going to answer one of my questions. So we just answered one question already. Okay, let's keep going. In the fall, she played soccer. She loved the fast pace of the game. She loved passing the ball back and forth, and she loved knocking the ball past the goalie to score. Abby was the captain of her soccer team. One thing that made Abby so good was her speed. She was the fastest runner on her team. Abby kept up her speed by running on trails in the woods behind her house. Her dog, Sadie, ran with her. So I'm going to pause right there, boys and girls, because I remember having to look out for the word speed. So let me go back to my questions. Number one, how did Abby keep up her speed? There it is. There's that word speed. So let's go ahead. Remember, you want to read all of your answer choices. Was it gymnastics? Was it by doing softball? Was it by running? Or was it playing games? Okay, now if you look down here, they give us these little hints, which are nice, which they don't do for all the questions. So here it says A, the story says that Abby loves sports, but it doesn't mention anything about gymnastics. So gymnastics cannot be our answer. So I would go ahead and just cross that out using your process of elimination, right? You get rid of the ones that possibly don't belong. So gymnastics is not the answer. B, softball. Nope, I don't remember them. I remember reading that that was one of her favorite sports, but it didn't talk about how she kept her speed up. C, running. I do remember them talking about her running in the woods behind her house with her dog. So I'm going to go ahead and hold on to C as a really strong possibility for an answer, but I definitely want to make sure I read all of the answer choices. D, playing games. No, it did not talk about anything with Abby playing games. So there you go, boys and girls. Your answer would in fact be C. Okay, and you can, of course, always go back to the passage and make sure that you were correct in choosing that. Here it is. Abby kept up her speed by running on the trails in the woods. All right, so we just answered 2 questions. So let's continue with our passage. One day during soccer season, while Abby was running, she tripped on a tree root. She fell and hurt her leg. Sadie had been running with her. She ran back home without Abby. When Abby's parents saw Sadie without Abby, they knew something was wrong. They followed the running trail and found her. Abby's father picked her up and carried her home. Her parents took Abby to the hospital. In the emergency room, doctors took x-rays of her ankle. So I'm going to pause here and I'm going to go back because I remember reading something about Abby's parents. So we answered number 1 already. Let's look at number 2. How did Abby's parents know that something was wrong? Was it that Sadie came home alone? Well, yeah, they just said that. I just read that in the passage, but let me hold on to that and read the rest of them. Abby told them. No, I don't remember anything about Abby telling them. Abby's friends called them. I didn't even hear anything about Abby's friends, so it can't be C. D, the soccer coach told them. I don't remember reading that either. So I can, again, very important, go back. So I'm thinking the answer is Sadie came home alone. So let me just go back to the passage. And it says here, Sadie had been running with her. She ran back home without Abby. When Abby's parents saw Sadie without Abby, there it is, boys and girls, they knew something was wrong. So we just answered another one of our questions. Great job. Okay, so I also remember hearing something about a hospital. So here it says, in the emergency room, doctors took x-rays of her ankle. So let's go ahead and see what happened to Abby's ankle at the hospital. All right, so here we just talked about the fact that at the hospital, Abby received x-rays of her ankle. Now again, this is an example of an open-ended question. Okay, so if we were to answer this question, it's very important that you write out your answer. Okay, so what I would say here, I'm going to put a little box here so you can see it. I would restate the question. So I would say, at the hospital, Abby received x-rays of her ankle. Okay, you're going to notice I did not just say received x-rays of her ankle. I restated the question. You always want to do that. It's very important that you do that in literacy. And even overall, you want to restate the question and put it in a complete sentence. So at the hospital, Abby received x-rays of her ankle. Okay, so far we answered questions 1, 2, 3, and 4. Excellent job, boys and girls. Now, just to give you a little heads up, I'm actually going to, in a couple minutes, you're going to have to go back and you're going to do an activity where you'll have to answer questions 5, 6, and 7 on your own. So even if I find the answers to those, I'm going to go ahead and skip them because this way I want to allow you to go back and find the answers. Okay, so I'm just going to finish reading the passage. All right. Abby had sprained her ankle. It was wrapped in a tight bandage, and Abby had to learn to walk with crutches. She would not be able to run or play soccer for several weeks. She was very upset. When Abby's teammates came to visit with her and play games, she was grumpy. She missed playing soccer, and the crutches hurt her arms. After Abby spent several days feeling sorry for herself, her parents knew something had to change. They had a talk with Abby. They talked about how important teamwork is. Abby knew that being the star of a team isn't the most important part of being a team. She needed to try to make the best of her injury. Abby's parents called her coach and asked if he had any ideas to help her deal with the time off the field. In fact, Abby's coach had a wonderful idea. The soccer team needed a manager. Abby knew all the players and the rules. The players liked Abby and looked up to her. She would be perfect for the job. At first, it was hard to watch her friends play while she sat on the sidelines. But before long, Abby was so busy being a manager and helping her friends play well that she forgot to be grumpy and sad. By the end of the season, Abby's ankle had healed and she was allowed to play soccer again. But Abby had enjoyed being team manager so much that she didn't want to stop. And the team didn't want her to either. Abby ended the season as both the captain and the team manager. It was the first time a student had done both. Abby was glad that she had decided to make the best of a bad situation. Okay, boys and girls, so as you can see, I finished reading the passage. And again, just as a reminder, I'm going to leave questions 5, 6, and 7 for you to answer. So let's take a look at the steps that we completed. Okay. Read the questions first. Did we do that? Yes, we did. We read the questions first. Okay, read the passage. We absolutely read the passage. Did we find the answers? Well, yes, we did. We found 4 of them. We answered the questions and we checked our work. Yep, you can go back and check your work always. And it's very important that you do that before you turn any assignments in. Okay, boys and girls, have a wonderful day.